Hi everybody and welcome to this week's video on using Fivetran on top of Snowflake. So in this video, this is what we're going to cover. We're going to look at how we can begin a Fivetran trial using Snowflake's Partner Connect. We're then going to follow the quick start guide that is provided on the Snowflake website. So you can check out that, and I'll put the link in the description below if you want to follow along in your own time. But first of all, we're going to load Google Ads data into Snowflake using Fivetran. And then we're going to kick off a DBT project. And if you're not familiar with DBT, I'll put a link in the video now above where you can find out about DBT and get into some more detail as following that playlist. But here we're going to kick off a DBT project using Fivetran to generate models and target tables to load our data in Snowflake. Then we'll look at how to create a sandbox, an analytical sandbox in Snowflake using clones. So coming into Snowflake, we're going to click on the Partner Connect button to select Fivetran from the Snowflake Partner Connect portal. You can see when we click on it, we need to be using an account admin role. It gives us that warning there. So if we click OK on that error message, come up here in the classic web UI for Snowflake, switch the role to account admin. Now we can click Fivetran. It tells us what databases and warehouses, users and roles it's going to create. We can also select other databases that we want the role to access. In this case, we're just going to leave it as blank, and we're going to click connect. And in the background, it's creating these objects on Snowflake and creating our Fivetran trial account. Okay, so for me, that took about 2 minutes. Now I get this dialog box telling me the partner account has been created and it's ready to be activated. So let's click activate. This will take us over to the Fivetran website where we have to enter some details to create our 14-day trial with Fivetran. I've entered my password and I'm going to click start free trial. And that's completed our Fivetran trial account setup, and it takes us to our page here where we can connect different data sources. You can see 166 sources. Fivetran pretty much caters for nearly every single data source you would want out of the box. For this tutorial today, we're going to upload some sample Google AdWords data using the Google Sheets connector from this screen. So let's do that next. Now for this tutorial, if you don't have access to your own Google Ads data, for your convenience, there's a Google AdWords Google Sheet provided for this tutorial, which contains 3 different workbooks. Each workbook will correspond to a target table in the Snowflake warehouse, and this allows us then to use and demonstrate Fivetran as part of this tutorial. So we're going to go and configure that. We need to pick up the Google Sheets source and click Continue Setup. We're now presented with this screen where we set up our destination schema, and we're going to call it Google Ads Demo. We also need to pick our destination table, which is going to be final URL performance. And in the tutorial documentation for the quick start, it will provide a link to you to get the Google Sheet URL, which will first take you here. And then you click this function which generates a URL for you to use. So then we can just copy this link out. We're going to pick Authorize Service Account. That's asking them for the sheet URL which you just copied. We'll paste that in there and click Find Sheet. Once it's found the sheet, it should come up with this named range box, which allows you to pick from this drop down the final URL performance sheet. We're then going to click Save and Test. That will test all the connections and should come back in a second as all the connection tests have passed. We'll just give that a few seconds. And so there you've got it, all connection tests passed. We can now click Continue, and then it gives us this option to sync all of the data or just choose specific columns. We're going to sync all of the data and click Continue. This will now sync all of the data into the warehouse in Snowflake directly when we click Start Initial Sync. So this is the Fivetran dashboard, which shows you the progress of the jobs that you have running. And you can see it's syncing the data which it needs to do for the very first time. Following that, any updates to that Google Sheet will be propagated and synced up into Snowflake automatically by Fivetran. While our data is syncing, it'll take a few minutes. We're going to set up the next table. So let's click on the connectors menu on the left hand side. We're going to go up to the top right and click add connector. The similar process to before, where we need to go to Google Sheets. This time our destination schema will remain the same, Google Ads Demo, and this time we have a table called Criteria Performance, and again we'll provide our URL as we did before of our sheet. Click Find Sheet, and this time we're going to pick the Criteria Performance worksheet from the drop down right here. We're going to click Save and Test. All connection tests have passed. We click Continue. This takes us back to the dashboard again. We want to sync all of the data, so we'll start the initial sync. Let's go back to connectors again while that's happening, and we'll set up our third target table, which is the final one that we need for this demo. So again, Google Sheets, Google Ads Demo is the destination schema. Click Performance. This time is the destination table. Authorize the service account. And again, we need to pick up our URL for our Google Sheet. Paste it in here. Find the sheet. Once that's done, again, go to the drop down. Pick up our click performance range, save and test that. That'll take a minute or so, and now we'll start that data syncing. So again, all connections tests have passed. We'll click Continue. We'll select Sync all of the data. Start the initial sync. And there you have it. So we've taken data from 3 different Google Sheets into 3 different target tables in Snowflake. Let's go back into Snowflake while that is working away and just show you what has happened. So if we go into warehouses, we've had a warehouse added now, which is called PC Fivetran. In our databases, we've got a Fivetran database. If I go into there, there's our 3 tables which have been created. Well, 2 at the moment, and an audit table by default. It's still syncing that 3rd table, so it's creating the target table and moving the data across. So very soon we will see that appear in the list. There we go, just refreshed it. So there's our 3 tables, there's our Fivetran audit table. We didn't have to go into Snowflake to do that. We didn't need to run any DDL to set up those tables. That was all handled for us by Fivetran as part of that initial sync. So in the next section of this tutorial, we're going to get a sample from Github repository of a DBT project and fork that sample, and then we'll take a quick look at the files within that project. So now we need to fork this project, and notice that the owner is Fivetran at the top left here. I'm going to fork this project, and I pick my username, my repository name, leave everything as default and click Create Fork. Now you notice that my name here is the owner of the project, and that's all you need to do. So now that repository is under my personal GitHub account, or a copy of it certainly anyway, and we can now change this repository however we like without impacting the sample repository that was provided. So that has created our first DBT project within GitHub. There's a few files to be aware of here, which is the DBT project file, packages file, and then the deployment YAML files. If you're interested in finding out more about DBT, again, check out my playlist, which takes you from a beginner level and how to set up DBT from scratch, as well as a GitHub account that's linked to DBT in the background. But for this video and tutorial, that's all I'm going to cover for DBT specifically. We're going to now head back to Fivetran to set up those DBT transformations we need. Okay, so now we're back into Fivetran. We're going to click on transformations on the left hand side. So you've got 2 options here, Fivetran transformations or DBT transformations, which are currently in beta. but you should see the same things here in your version of the trial as well. What we're going to do next is we're going to click on Try DBT Transformations, and we're going to click on Enable. And so what it's looking for here, you can see it's looking for these two files. It's saying these two files must exist in your DBT project in GitHub, which we've just obviously seen and checked. We're going to select I am ready to connect, and we get to this page here where we get a public key that we can copy, and then we go to the GitHub repository, we click on settings, we click on deploy keys, we click add deploy key, and we'll call this something obvious like Fivetran DBT access, so we know what this key is all about. I'm going to paste my key in here in a second and click add key. I'm just going to pause the video while I do that, just because you should really keep it secret. So I'll just point that out to you at the stage. I'm going to paste that key in here and click add key. So there we go. Now we've added that key, we've saved it. That's now allowing Fivetran access to this DBT project. If we want to remove that at any time, we can just click on this delete button, and that will break the access that Fivetran has to the DBT project. If we now go back to clicking code, back to our project, if we just drop down this code box here, click SSH, and we're going to copy out this URL here because we're going to need this in the next step. So just make sure you grab that from the code drop down, SSH, grab this URL here. We're going to flick back to Fivetran. In the repository URL, we're going to paste the URL into here. In the default schema, we're going to use Google Ads DBT here. And we're also going to scroll down and click Show Advanced Options. We want to use the main branch every time we're running these transformations, but we could override that if we wanted to use a different feature branch for testing. We're going to click Save and Test and wait for the successful message. What this is enabling you to do with Fivetran is not only are we going to be able to load data onto our data platform, in this case from our Google Sheets, our free Google Sheets, into our free tables, we're then able to trigger specific DBT transformations as part of that whole end-to-end orchestration piece. Remember, DBT is just the T in ELT or ETL. It's just doing the transformation piece. It cannot onboard data onto your data platform. So we're using Fivetran as a really neat and seamless, effortless way of being able to create target tables, keep data in sync between a range of sources and source systems, bring that onto Snowflake, and then trigger our DBT transformations as part of that whole end-to-end orchestration, which can apply our business logic and get that data into a format where our downstream users and applications can use that data effectively. So now we've got a successful message. Fivetran's been able to connect to our DBT project in GitHub. And we're going to click Transformations to go back to our window. And so now you can see we are getting our jobs from the Git repository, and it's syncing. So Fivetran's communicating with the Git repository and bringing those DBT transformation jobs in. So we'll give that a minute or so, and I'll just pause the video while we wait for that. So now you can see our transformations have been loaded in from our GitHub project, our DBT project in GitHub. Here's the schedules that's pulled out from our jobs, weekdays or daily. We don't really want to wait because we want to run our transformations right now. So let's click on the weekdays item here. You can see at the top right, we can click run now, which is exactly what we're going to do. We're just going to kick off that transformation job on an ad hoc basis outside of its usual schedule by doing that. So it's a real shame that this quick start project is about 2 years out of date. So looking at the repository itself, you can see that this code was committed 2 years ago. And when I've tried to run these transformation jobs, I've started to run into errors because things have been deprecated, and I've been able to get past one or two of these errors, but I'm still coming up against more errors which are appearing, such as this stuff here. And at the time, I haven't got the time to go into this and troubleshoot it in any real depth. So I've tried a few little things, can't get it working. Essentially though, if it did run, it would transform the data that we've loaded onto Snowflake. Using Fivetran will call these DBT jobs exactly as we've seen so far. The issue that we've got isn't with Fivetran, it's with some of the outdated code related to DBT within the GitHub project, and I don't have time to get through that. So worthwhile pointing this out to you, because not everything runs smoothly, especially with these some of these quick start projects, because technology moves so quickly. Obviously they get out of date very, very fast as well if they're not maintained properly. So we'll conclude the DBT piece here and move on to one or two of the next steps, just to conclude this tutorial in the best way I can. So we're going to flick back into, so we're going to come back into Snowflake now and have a look at the Fivetran database. You can see we've got our 3 tables we've loaded using Fivetran in here. Let's just pretend that we've been able to execute those DBT transformation jobs successfully, and that has created a valuable output in production that our data analysts and scientists now want to experiment with and potentially change some of that data for their models. So we're going to clone the entire database of the PC Fivetran database here using Snowflake's out-of-the-box cloning features. If you're not familiar with it, I'll put a link in the banner above and you can go back and check out a video that's dedicated to cloning on Snowflake. And this creates a logical copy of the database. It doesn't use any additional space initially unless you start to change the data. And it's because it's not physically moving the data, it's also very, very fast as well. In the top right hand corner, we just need to select the context that we're running in. So we're just going to down, pick the Fivetran database, and pick the Google Ads demo schema as well. And then we just want to create a clone of the database. So to do that, we can just use this bit of SQL here. We're going to create a database called Google Ads _dev, this keyword clone, and then we tell Snowflake what object we want to clone from. In this case, it's our Fivetran database. So if we execute that, that'd be pretty quick, regardless of the amount of data in there. 3.5 seconds. It says we now got this database Google Ads dev created. If I refresh our database object pane on the left hand side, you can see we've now got a new database. That's effectively a logical database. We haven't physically moved or copied any data at all. If we expand that out, we can then see our schemas, our objects in there. I can even go into here. So if we have a look at the top 100 records in that criteria performance table, which is in our cloned database, and you can see our data coming back as you would expect. Although it hasn't taken up any additional space and it's a logical copy, this is also a writable clone. So if we're doing variable selection for as part of our modeling development lifecycle, we can definitely overwrite some of this data here. And it's at that point then Snowflake will start to charge you for additional storage. So I'm going to leave it there. Apologies about the DBT transformations not working as expected, but I'm sure you get the idea. Basically, Fivetran is able to load and onboard data onto a modern data platform, in this case Snowflake, really easily, quickly and effectively, and then keep that data in sync, as well as creating those target tables. From then on in, you can either execute transformations within Fivetran itself or hook it up to a DBT project in GitHub and then execute those jobs that you've created within DBT. That then allows you to transform the data, get it into a format that makes it available for downstream consumption. And then we've just had a look at some of the Snowflake's native functionality around cloning that allows us to effectively create analytical sandboxes and copies of that data to make it useful for analysis purposes, and they can manipulate that data without affecting live production class data. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, keep watching, keep subscribing, new videos coming soon. I also wanted to let you know about our Mastering Snowflake program with myself that we run, and it's an exclusive signature program to help you master Snowflake and learn how to design, implement, and scale solutions in the cloud. And I've designed this program specifically for those people who have either scratched the surface using Snowflake or who are stuck working with legacy on-premise technologies and haven't been invested in by their companies and have fallen behind in their career. And what I've done is packaged up my knowledge and experience of working with Snowflake since 2017 and learning how to package up Snowflake's out-of-the-box capabilities in a way where you can apply them in the real world to address common challenges. So this program isn't about theory. Of course, I need to introduce you to the concepts if you're new to Snowflake, and many of my members are, but it's really about introducing the theory and then in practice how you apply those in the real world. I've been through the pain of understanding what works and what doesn't. Now I've got a formula or a set of recipes, if you like, that show you how to do that. So the Master in Snowflake program includes in-depth, on-demand video course content that I've created that all include practical hands-on demos. I provide access to all the code, templates, and files that I use as part of those demos, so you can download them and use them freely. You may want to use them in your day-to-day work. You may want to take them and customize them and use them as a starting point. All members on the program get exclusive access to a members-only group where everybody can help each other out and share their knowledge and best practice and get expert advice. Finally, I also carry out a group 60-minute coaching call with all the members, totally optional, where you can ask me anything about Snowflake, data analytics, data strategy, data architecture, you name it, interview advice, and I can help you and give my input and help and support and guidance around that. Finally, you'll get lifetime access to all feature updates. Snowflake's changing and evolving. There's new features and releases every week, and you'll continue to benefit from those updates as well. At a high level, there's 10 modules. This is what we cover, everything ranging from the Snowflake architecture to getting data into Snowflake. And then once you've got data, how do you effectively use it, secure it, share it, and work with it to ensure that you get the maximum value from your Snowflake implementation. If you're interested, I've included the application link in the video description below. If this sounds like the thing that you're looking for and you want to supercharge your career, and if you're ready to take the ultimate step, I'd really encourage you to fill out the application form below.